Hey everybody, Matt Montanez here again with another lesson on how to use Avid Pro Tools. Today it's going to be about working with tracks. So I'm going to go over saving sessions correctly using, if you go up here in File, there's Save, Save As, Save Copy In. There's also a Save As template. I'm going to go over that. I'm going to talk about shortcut commands while I'm using them so your workflow will be a little bit faster while you are working. I'm going to show you how to color code your tracks and really organize your session and just really, like I said, working with your tracks to make everything run real more smooth while you're working in Pro Tools on any session. So today I brought open this song here called Early 2000s by the Grizzly City Boys, and that group consists of Fast Sean, Omar Aura, Otis Reed, and Halo the Human. And it's a really cool track. It was on their project Grizzly City USA, which you can find it on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, pretty much anywhere you can stream. And I'll actually put the link in the description below when this goes up on my YouTube channel. So in the song, when I first get it, I usually look through the session, and I like to organize my sessions with lead vocals on top, background vocals, ad-libs, and things like that underneath. So I'm going to click play, I'm going to solo stuff through, and I'm really going to just find out where everything's at.
My mama told me not to trust these hoes. My father never.
So it looks like this is the lead vocal for verse 1. So to get this box up here, you're going to double click here on the track's title name, and then it'll give you the box to rename the track. And I'm just going to put verse 1 lead. And then it looks like they split the lead up here because he probably overlaps his vocals, which as I zoom in, you can see. To zoom in like that with keyboard focus on, which is here's the A and Z. Older versions of Pro Tools, it'll be up here. And in the newer versions, I believe it's on automatically by default, so you don't have to worry about it. But it'll be here, and to zoom in, it's the letter T. To zoom in without keyboard focus, you hold Command and you hit the squared brackets, and it'll zoom in and out. So I just push T because I had keyboard focus on, and the lead vocal does overlap. So I'm gonna have verse 1 lead, and I'll just put a 1, and this will be verse 1 lead, and I'll put a 2. So I know that's the lead. And then I'm going to grab them. To grab them, you click the title name, you hold shift, and then you can click another one and it'll select both of them. And then you can grab by the title and you can drag and drop them to move them around in your tracks, in your edit window. So I put it at the top because that's what I like. And let's move forward here. So that's the first verse. So now I know that these are ad-libs, and we'll just do verse 1 and I'll do ad-libs, or I'll just put libs. And those are our ad-libs. Okay. So let's move over. This looks like it's verse 2, and that's the lead. Verse 2, lead 1. And I put 1 because it looks like they did the same thing here, whoever recorded this beforehand. And they don't really overlap, so we'll be able to comp them together later. But for now, I'll just leave them separate, and we will comp them when we start working with the actual track. Same thing, hold shift, click, and then I can drag it up to the top, and I'll put it under verse 1, so it's verse 2. And let's find verse 3 here, which is right here. And let's see what's going on here. Let's push play.
I'm running wild in the streets.
Way back when I had a thing for Felicia in a gang full of heathens right.
So it looks like it's just a double. So I'll just leave that in like the background double stuff. So this is going to be verse 3 lead. And I'll drag that to the top under verse 2 lead. And actually let me put this verse 3 double and then libs. 3 libs, 1, because we have a couple extra, 2, 3, and 4. Let's be verse 3 libs 2, verse 3 libs, 3 libs 4, and then verse 3 libs 5. Leave that there, and I forgot to label verse 2 libs. Now let's move over, and it looks like there's a 4th verse which goes all the way through, so we'll just do verse 4 lead and drag that one to the top as well. Let's go down, and it looks like they have 2 sets of libs, so verse 4 libs 1 and verse 4 libs 2. And here's a quick trick to show you guys, because I know it gets tedious to always have to click, then select OK, and then click again. So the way to do that, if you're inside a a name here like verse 1 libs, you titled it, and you want to title the one underneath it, you can hold command and click the right arrow key and it'll switch to the next track underneath. If you click left, it'll switch to the track before it. So you see I'm on verse 1 libs here. If I hold command and click right, now it goes to verse 2 libs, which is the one underneath, and then you can title it. And it's just a fast way to title stuff if you're titling multiple things at once. So let's go here to this chorus section and let's see what we got. Let's press play.
Be that zone. Be that
was the
zone.
early 2000s. You know 4XTs. $5 ought to get you was the early 2000s.
So it looks like they just did a hard left and a hard right for this first lead here, which we're going to fill it up. So when we do get into actually mixing this record, we're going to fill it up and we're going to make it sound like it's in the center as well as the sides. So this is going to be hook left and the command and push right, and it'll be hook right. Okay, and then underneath here, let's see what we got.
You know 4XTs. $5 ought to get you was the early 2000s.
So it sounds like this hook is a center, which is like a lead vocal. So I'm going to just put lead. And then the next one's going to be hook double. Let's move forward here. And we got something here at the end.
Kings, Canyon, and Peach, young and dumb, running wild in the streets.
So this is just a section of it, which it looks like they have different sections. Like if they swap back and forth, it sounds like.
Get you was the early 2000s. Way before I had a seed. A minor, but the hustle made.
So this is going to be hook lead 2. And this is going to be hook lead 2 double, which I'll just do that. Then this is going to be the same thing, hook lead 3, then hook lead 3 double, and then this one is going to be hook lead 4, hook lead 4, then hook lead 4 double. And let's reorganize this so everything's looking nice. So we got the 4, which will go under 3, shift click, go to 2, shift click, and let's go there. So as you can see, the way that I organize my sessions is it goes down kind of like stairs. This can get deleted. It looks like we don't have any use for that. And it looks like I actually have something grouped here, which I do not want that at the moment. So let's click this arrow, see our groups, and let's actually just delete our groups out, our active groups. And we're going to start fresh. Okay, like I was saying, as you can see, the way I like to organize my sessions, it kind of goes down like stairs. So it always starts from the left and it goes down to the side. So that's exactly how I like to keep my sessions organized. Okay, so now I like to split things off, but I'm going to color. Yeah, let's split the stuff off first before we color code. So I like to split stuff off and move them to auxiliary tracks and stuff, so it gives you just one fader to control things. And it'll really help your workflow work a lot faster and smoother. So we're going to create a new track, and the shortcut command for that is Command-Shift-N, and then you go to auxiliary track, and we're going to do a stereo auxiliary track, because we're going to put multiple files, going to be hard left and hard right. So we want both sides left and right. And we're going to label this as lead vocals, which can be titled as lead vox. We are going to solo safe this. So whenever we click solo on one of these tracks, it'll let us still hear it. For example, here's this one. If we click solo,
My mama told me not to.
we can hear it. But if we route that, the output going into this lead vox, and we hit play, we cannot hear it anymore. So if we hold command and click to solo safe it,
My mama told me not.
pretty much what it's telling us is whatever we're clicking solo on, this will solo with it. Okay? So that's what that does. But if we solo something, for example, down here, it won't play this track up here because that's not soloed. So yeah, it's just something to get used to when you work. And then we want to do one for background vocals as well, which is all this stuff here. So I'm going to create another one. It's going to be Command-Shift-N. And then the shortcut command, so you don't have to move your mouse and click, is you hold command, click down. It'll switch the track type. So we're going to go auxiliary. If you hold command and click the right and left arrow keys, it'll switch what it is, a mono or a stereo file. We'll click enter to create. And then we'll label this one as background vox. And we're going to transfer all of them. So I'm going to click, hold shift, and then I'm going to click the top one. So all of them are selected. Now I'm going to hold shift, hold option alt, click the output, go to track and send it to background Vox. Now all these tracks outputs are going to background Vox's input. Oops. So now the reason why I do that, like I said before, is so I can use one fader to control the volume for all of these.
And every black girl said they don't give dome, and juvenile slow motion used to be that song. I was the
Okay, it'll be easier to see up here when I'm working with these ones. So let's do that here. Shift, Alt Option, click, go to track, send it to the lead Vox track, which is here.
And every black girl said they don't give dome. She used to be that song.
And that's so I can have control over all these lead vocals with one fader. Okay, so now I like to color code everything. When I have a 2-track, I always like to color code it as yellow. So you will click the color over here and you click yellow. It'll color this yellow. I keep saturation up and brightness, and to use those is you click this button here. If you like to color code the actual region files or the clip files, you can click it actually and it'll switch here, or you can switch it in this drop down menu and you can switch the color of it if you'd like. I don't really switch the regions or the clip tracks. I like to leave them as they are. I just like to switch the track name over here for the colors. And then for these ones, I like to leave them as the default color, and I like to switch the auxiliary tracks to this baby blue color, light sky blue color. If you have multiple tracks selected with different colors, it'll highlight all the colors in your color box here, your color palette. So to keep that in mind, so let's say I want these to match the same color, and to jump like that is you click the first one, you hold shift and command, then you click, and it won't capture anything in the middle. With that command button selected, it'll capture the one that you want to select. So now it has blue and green, but I want them both blue, so I click the blue. Then you can close that box, and now our auxiliary tracks are the same exact color. So let's get into this track a little bit, and let's start messing with these actual tracks. Let's work with them a little bit. So let's make this bigger by grabbing here and bringing it down, or you can grab this ruler and you can actually click large, jumbo, whatever you want. And let's zoom in by pressing T. And let's fix these fades and stuff. I'm going to solo this, and let's see what we got going on.
My mama told me not to trust these hoes. My father never told me nothing because that nigga was gone.
So like this breath right here feels out of place. It's a little too much for my taste. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix that. And by doing that is I'm in grid mode, so I have to hold command, and then I can click freely inside this clip without following the grid. If I don't hold command and I click, it'll snap my selection to those grid points. So I'm going to hold command and click. I'm going to go in with keyboard focus on. It's the letter B to cut. And then I'm going to fade with the smart tool selected. I go to the top corner and I can move the fade over. I'm going to just fade it out like that. And I'm going to bring some of this breath out. So I'm going to freely click in here. To chop everything from your insert selection point to the left is the letter A. And for everything to the right from your edit selection point, your insert selection point, is S. So keep that in mind, so when you're working, it moves a lot faster. So I'm going to click A to chop everything off from the left, move to the top, hold command to freely move my fade, click, and just drag it over. Now I'm going to play it back.
Because that nigga was gone. I bought my first nickel bag at 13 years old. I got my first piece of ass.
This P feels a little too rough for me, so I'm going to fix that. Freely click with command and click, press B, move to the top, click, hold command to freely move my fade. And let's go back and listen again.
Oh, I got my first piece of ass from a...
It's a little too much still, so I'm going to go with my trim tool on the fade. I'm going to hold command, click, and then I can freely move it. If I don't hold command, it'll snap to the grid. So what that command does is it bypasses the grid mode temporarily.
Got my first piece of ass from a girl unknown. Back when that...
This breath feels like a little much, so let's fade this breath some.
Unknown. Back when every black girl said they...
And this B feels like a little much, so let's fade that a little bit.
Back when every black girl said they don't give dome in juvenile slow motion used.
And then here's where they collide a little bit, so we're gonna have solo we're gonna solo both of them to hear how it sounds.
Motion used to be that song.
So actually he just says the same word here. So let's see if we can combine these two and comp them together.
Used to be that song.
So I'm going to select here, like in the middle. I'm going to chop everything off to the left. And let's go to the right and see what we're overlapping.
Tones they have a job, cause tones they have a job. Tones they have a job.
So it overlaps the same word. So I'm going to chop this off here. And let's combine it. So I'm going to go to the bottom of the region, the clip track. I'm going to switch it's going to switch to the hand tool, a smart tool on. I'm going to click. You have to hold control, you click, and then you drag it up. If you hold control, it won't move your waveform no matter if you move left and right by accident. If you don't hold control, if you select and you move around, it'll move your waveform. So now you're not in the same exact spot. So hold control, click, and move it up. Also, to undo with keyboard focus mode on, it's just the letter Z. You don't have to hold command and press Z. It's just the letter Z. Okay, so let's hold control, click, and move it up. Let's zoom in to this left side and let's do a crossfade and see if it sounds natural. Usually what I found out with the crossfade, to do that, you got to actually just go to the middle of two regions or clips. In the middle on the bottom with smart tool on, you click and then you hold command. You always hold command so you bypass that grid mode and you can do a small crossfade. And what I learned about crossfades is if you have this kind of curve, it makes it sound more natural. With keyboard focus on, you can click F and it'll automatically do a crossfade. If you hold command and click F, it'll bring up the fades menu. So click command F and make sure you click equal power. And with that kind of curve, it makes it sound super natural. So let's do that. And let's go back and let's hear how that sounds.
Motion used to be that. Motion used to be that.
And it has like a little hiccup in there. So let's smooth that out a little bit. So let's bring this back some and let's do that crossfade again and hear it.
How slow motion used to be that song.
And it's still slightly there. So let's try a little bit more and see what we got.
Slow motion used to be that song. I was the juvenile
and it's barely noticeable, but when you have the music on, which I'll play it now, you won't hear it.
Juvenile slow motion used to be that song.
It sounds really, really natural. So let's fix this last one here at the end. And let's pull it back. And oops, let's just go this way and do that crossfade.
Tones they have a job.
And let's go back.
Or ring back tones they have a job.
And very natural, it works.
Ring back tones they have a job because my grandma I would lean.
Oops, I didn't notice that we still had this gap too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select here without moving this. I'm going to hold control and option. And what option does is it's going to make a copy. So I'm going to click and drag it down. Then I'm going to get my trim tool and bring all this out to get that back. Freely click and then I can bring down. So now this never ruined our fades or anything we did. So it doesn't mess up our work. So I'm actually glad I made that mistake to show you guys that. So let's go in here and let's see the two sounds we got going on here to fix this. So it has just an S sound, and let's see what we got down here.
16.
So it's still the same kind of S sound, so we're going to just chop that off. Let's click this with the hand tool and let's push the right arrow key to fly to the end. And as you can tell, it doesn't really overlap here, so we'll just chop this off. And like I said before, keyboard focus on. That's S to chop everything to the right off. A is to chop everything to the left off, excuse me. Click with the hand tool, hold control, and slide it up. Let's bring these as close as possible. And let's go down to the fade tool and just do a simple crossfade. Let's select it. Let's click left to fly to the left. And let's do a simple crossfade there. And now let's hear how this sounds. I'm going to do what's solo first, and then we'll go back and hear it with the music.
Some clean rap song, 16. Like my dream can't really be that long. I had to chill.
Sounds good. Here.
Leave that alone. It don't.
Sounds good. Let's hear it with the music.
Rap song, 16. Like my dream here had to leave that alone. It don't.
And that sounds great. So now we just got rid of one of our whole tracks, so it has nothing on it now. So we can click the title, right click, and then you can just delete that out since we no longer need that. So let's make this small again. And let's go down and let's check out our other section here. Actually, I'm gonna our other section here, excuse me, our Adlibs. So here's our verse 1 Adlibs, and this is what I always do is I always tighten everything up. You always have to keep everything tight to sit on top of each other so it sounds great, it sounds natural, and you don't have any mess ups or hiccups or anything like that. So I'm gonna select these two, shift click, I'm going to hold shift, hold alt option. I'm going to go here and I'm going to drag this down so they both get big. If I didn't hold the alt option, only one of them. If I didn't hold shift alt option, only one of them's going to get big. So if I only hold shift, it doesn't do anything. If I hold just alt, everything gets big. So you have to hold shift alt option. Basically, shift is everything that's selected. All the time, just think of it that way. It's what's selected it's going to affect. So shift alt option, they both get big. And let's zoom in here and let's look what we got. Okay, and as you can tell, see how his words is a little before. So we're going to fix that. We're going to chop here. Click here, take everything off, select, hold command so we can bypass the grid and freely move it over. About right there. And then we're going to just make a fade there. Let's chop off this extraness and let's just get it to match there and do a fade. And same thing here, as you can tell, I would actually make the waveforms bigger, and to do that is to click here. As you can tell, it's supposed to start more over here, this section, so it has to get nudged over a little bit. So let's come this way and just make a chop here so we don't affect everything to the right, because if we didn't make that chop and we moved it, everything over here got moved, and we don't want that. So let's just make a random chop. Let's zoom back in and let's line this up. So we're going to zoom in and we're going to line this up there. And chop everything to the left off. Let's make that fade. See, that looks great. This looks pretty good. It doesn't look bad, but I actually want it more cleaner than that. So let's make that more cleaner. So we're going to just chop here, B, select, and let's move this whole section back about right there. And let's do our little crossfade. And all this extraness, I like to chop this in half because it doesn't need that much of that shh sound. And let's hear this.
The trustees hoes, my father. The trustees hoes, my father.
And let's solo it and hear both of them without the music.
The trustees hoes, my father.
Sounds great. And I'm actually going to undo everything I did so you can hear without the edits. Let's do it this way though. Select them, Control Option to drag it down. And let's just bring this back. I'm going to solo it and let's see how it sounded without our edits.
The trustees hoes, my the trustees hoes, my.
And you can hear that it's not real tight how we made it sound. And here it is the way we made it sound.
Trustees hoes, my.
Sounds great. And this T feels a little strong for me, so I'm going to fade more on this T, and I'm actually going to fade the lead vocal T a little bit.
The trustees hoes, my father.
Sounds great. And then I would do that with every single ad-lib. I'm going to do 2 more on these ad-libs here, so then we can move forward and I can show you some more stuff today. So as you can see, it's a little off. They're not exactly on.
Because that nigga was.
So we're going to fix that. Same thing. We're going to chop here, because as you can see, they're pretty far off. We're going to drag it, drop it there. Let's make this smaller because it doesn't need to be that long. About there. Crossfade there. Fade. Looks good. This one looks good already. So let's cut everything off to the left. And there. And let's see how it sounds.
Because that nigga was gone.
That sounds a lot better than what it was, right? So let's nudge all this over a little bit. This part looks great. It's just this little section here, which is just a little long. So let's just shorten it. Crossfade. Cut that off. Bring that fade. And I'm going to just chop this off because we don't need that extra C, that consonant there, what he's saying.
Gone.
Or G, excuse me. And let's chop this and fade that. Sorry, I've been dealing with this cough for 3 weeks now and it's not going away. So I'm working on it though. All right, let's cut this off. Let's zoom in here and let's fix this one now. Let's line that there, fade, let's chop this. Let's make this random chop and shrink this up. Crossfade, fade, and let's just chop this extraness, fade that, and fade that. And let's hear how that sounds.
10 years old, I got my first.
Sounds good with the music.
10 years old, I got my first.
And that sounds great. So once I do that, and I do that with every single background to make it super tight, so all this would be done, I'll bring them all back down to where they need to be placed, the ad-libs. And I start mixing because the editing takes a long time. It takes about an hour to do it. I can fly through it, but with me explaining it to you guys, it takes a little longer, of course, and I'm showing you. But but it takes me still about an hour to do a full song editing wise and making sure everything's tight. But I'm going to show you one more trick on making all these fades if everything was in line and without you having to go into each track individually to make chops, edit, fades, etc. So let's say they did a real good job with their ad-libs and they're really super duper tight. So a faster way to cut everything out is to press Command, click U, and this is called strip silence. Okay, so if you come in here in edit and you go down, you'll see it's called strip silence, but I use the shortcut key Command U, and what it does, it takes out all, it basically with your settings, it'll take out all the emptiness. So let's set the threshold. That looks good. So it goes a little bit of the endings go over and a little bit of the beginnings. You can even set a time duration, and then we're gonna just bring a little bit back. It's called a pad, and so now we're not chopping off anything. We can click strip, and it chopped off everything that was blank. Okay. Let's undo that. And if you want to do it the other way, you can click separate. It doesn't delete anything. It just separates it all. Or you can click extract and it deletes everything that you had highlighted. So it's really cool to do that. So I'm going to click strip, and then just to do quick fades, just click F and it'll fade everything that you have selected. So if I zoom in, you'll see there's a fade now. F. There's those fades. And those fades go off your preferences. So if you go and set up preferences and you go to editing, it'll go off these preferences on what they are. And that's what that does. Okay, so then we're pretty much done with that. If everything was aligned the right way, and then you can just do it there, it should be about the same. You click fade here, same thing, F fade. And it does that, and it's really, really cool, and it makes things move super much faster, so you don't need to go through each individual track if everything was aligned perfect. But you can even do that beforehand. Like if you want to, you can do it beforehand, you know, do all your strip silence, everything looks clean, you don't have all that dead air, the bleed from the headphones and stuff,
I get 13.
and just listen to it through.
I get 13 years old. I got my first piece of ass from a girl unknown. Back when that
For example, this one sounds great, so I wouldn't even move
they
it.
don't give dome and
But this one sounds a little off, so then I would go in and just edit this one. Listen to
to
that.
be that song. I was
That one sounds fine.
trying to be that grown.
Fine.
Or ring back tones.
So those ones all sound fine, so you don't really need to go in and edit them up and really fix them. You don't have to do that. You just fix the ones that sound bad. You know, it keeps it musical too, so not everything's like super robotic tight. So keep that in mind. And it's really cool, it makes things fast. So as you go along and you're doing, you should get into the habit of always hitting Command S, and what that does, that automatically saves your session. So it'll save it. So whenever you do any kind of edits, Command S, and just get into that habit, always hitting Command S to save. To do the next thing, save as. What save as is doing when you click save as, what it's doing is just making a new Pro Tools file. So this one's called stream. If I do like, oh, stream version 2 or stream instrumental, and I click save, you're now working just in that stream version 2, and you're not affecting anything else from that stream version, that first version. And what that's great for is in case like you have to do revisions, do edits, and say, oh, I really like my mix, I like my first mix. You send it out to somebody, you know, they review and they're like, okay, I have these notes for you. Then it's always smart to make, okay, save as it, open your session, save as it, and start your new sessions, your new edits, because then I get this a lot. I'm sure a lot of you do. They're like, actually, I liked what you did the first time. Well, now you just accidentally saved over everything and you got to go back, but you don't have that version anymore, so you got to remember what you did. But if you save as it, you can always go back to that session and just incorporate the new stuff from the two versions, which is really cool because you have you have import session data, which I'll go into that in a future lesson. Then you got save copy in, and what save copy in is, it's great for when you're sending out the session to a new engineer to either mix, master, or you're saving it for archive, because what it's doing is it'll actually delete a lot of your stuff out that you're not using, so it saves space if you're archiving, or you're saving it to the mixing engineer, so it doesn't take over just stuff you don't use. So you'll click File, Save Copy In. and you'll click your session format. Usually you stay in latest, but some people are on older versions of Pro Tools and they had different file formats. So now it is Pro Tools at a .ptx file. Back in the day, it was a PTF file between 7 and 9. And before that, I don't remember the file format. I think it was probably just a PT file. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you know it, go ahead and drop a comment in the comment section below. That's fine, but I don't remember the format. So you can stick to latest. Then you can switch your session parameters. So your audio file type, if you want it WAV or AIFF, the sample rate, the bit depth, which I usually just leave that alone. You don't really need to mess with character set. You can just leave that off. That I honestly don't even know. Excuse me. I honestly don't even know what that's doing. So I always leave it off. Then it wants to talk to you about items to copy over. Always, 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 always click audio files and copy the audio files over. You always want to do that. So what that does is if you have it on, it'll basically grab all your audio files and copy them into this new session that it's saving for you to send out. If you don't, it'll just save the PTX file and just the not even the cache, just the PTX file. And that's pretty much all you're getting with these new parameters. But you want to take the audio files too, so when you send it off, they'll have everything guaranteed. If you don't do it this way, and you, for example, I have mine saved in my Pro Tools folder here, and if I just go, okay, here's the session, early 2000s, copy, send that, sometimes you're missing those audio files because you brought them over from something else. So you always want to do save files, save copy in, audio files, click OK. You can take the playlist over too if you want to, but you don't have to. I always just send it this way. Audio files, OK, desktop, wherever I'm saving it, and says for mixing. Or I'll just put early 2000s, the actual title of the song. Click save. So now it's copying all those files like I was explaining. And it's doing that into this new folder, which I'll show you right now once it's done copying. And I'll show you how it copied everything over. So it's like a fresh, brand new session for you to send to somebody. And it's great because they need every single thing in that session, or else they're going to be missing files. So let me drop this down. So here's the new folder, early 2000s I just made, and it gave you your PTX file, and here's all the audio files with it. So if I open this, it's going to be the same exact session, exactly how I have it with every single audio file guaranteed. If you didn't click audio files, it's just going to be this PTX file. And if they try to open it, they're like, hey, dude, I don't have the audio files. I cannot do anything with the session. And then you got to go back and resend the audio files. And you don't want to do that. That's just a pain. So always do save copy in that way. It is the best way. Save template. Let's say this, for I don't know why, but let's say you like this as your template. You can click save file, save as template. And basically it's, if you want to start a new session, you click open template. It's going to open it exactly this way with these tracks exactly like this. And yeah, so I'll show you. I'm actually doing another video on how to make your own templates, and you'll get more in depth with that on how to do all that. And it'll help you a lot in your workflow and everything to set up your sessions a lot better. So yeah, with that in mind, we're going to go back in here and we're going to do a little more edits with this section here. So as you can tell, this is a stereo file. You see the two files here, and that's because I'm guessing they recorded this in Logic before they sent this to me. So to split these off, which is really cool, and this is my favorite feature in Pro Tools, which I have not figured out how the heck you do it in Logic, but with Pro Tools you can right click and you can actually click split into mono. So now you don't have that extra track for nothing. And then you can hide it. So you'll right click and you click hide, but you always want to make sure you make it active. And let me show you why. So I'm going to bring my tracks list up, and let me just, well, I don't need to relabel it because they actually have the label. It relabels itself. So I'm going to just hide this one, just hide it. And if I click play,
it was the early 2000s.
Okay, now let me mute these. You can actually still hear it because it's still playing in the background. That's what it's doing. If I mute it and then I hide it, now you don't hear it. So just keep that in mind. And to hide things and stuff with this track menu, just click the little dot over here on the side, or you can right click and click hide. So when you split things off, you got this side's on the left side, so you will click hook left right we'll mute that, and then hook left, which is the original with the stereo, as you can tell here. We're going to grab them both, shift command and click both. We're going to right click and we're going to click hide and make inactive. So now we only have that hook left, and the other two are hidden. You can tell because they get italicized and you don't have to worry about it. And we're going to do the same thing with the left one, with the right one. So split into mono, and we're going to click the first one, which is stereo, and then we're going to keep the right one this time, and the left one we're going to hide. Right click, hide and make inactive. So now we have them both, which just is the left and right file, and they're already panned, which is cool because we took the left side, so it's panned to the left. We took the right side, it's panned to the right. Really, really cool, you know? So now we can actually go in and we can actually tighten these up a lot better. Like that. And we can just get these done and tighten them up, and it'll sound good. And we can manipulate these a little bit better, so we can bring them a little tighter so it fills up that center. And that's what I would do while I'm mixing this record, is I'll bring them down probably 54 and 54. You got that center there now, and now when mixing I would widen it up and just get some outside stuff. So for example, I'm going to use the send here, and I'm going to go click a new track. It's going to be stereo and auxiliary track, and this is going to be with hook. And to add a little width to the hooks, there's many ways you can do it. I'm going to do it simply with an EQ. And I do it this way. This is a little more advanced stuff, which I'll get into when we get into our mixing sections, but I'm just showing you real quick so you can hear.
It was the early 2000s.
Okay, so now we're going to make it a little bit wider with a delay. Delay, the regular delay. Mono to stereo. And we want to pan our left one to the right, and then our right one to the right. Usually what I do in these sends, as you can tell, it's all centered.
It was the early 2000s.
So it didn't make it wide enough yet. Like, it sounds like it's just crunched in the center. So you got to make them pan over to the right and to the left, those sends. So it actually goes to the left, goes to the right ear. But what I do is I click this, which is called link panner to mains. So what it does is it doesn't matter what I do, it'll just follow whatever this is. So if it's on and I move this more to the right, see, it just follows it, which is really cool. So I usually have that on, but for this, I'm going to leave it off. So I leave them both off, and I'm panning it hard left, hard right, so we can get this wider.
It was the early 2000s.
And as you can hear, it's just a lot wider now.
It was the early 2000s.
But I like to do that, and that makes
It was the early 2000s.
real wide and more full in there. And that's what I would do with this chorus, because since it was just a hard left and hard right, we want that center in there. So to fix this left is I'm going to click B, and then to scroll up and down without using your mouse and clicking, you can press P with keyboard focus on, and it'll move your insert up. If you hit the colons or semicolon, it'll move it down. And then click B, and then I'm going to go over here, command click to freely click out of that grid, press A, down, and A. And that's to do everything with the keyboard, and it's really, really cool and fast. To do a quick fade with this shortcut here, F is for fading, okay? And it fades that highlighted area. Let's say you want to do a fade out, it's G. Excuse me, when it's not selected, it's G. And you can go down and click G. So it does from the edit selection to the right. If, let's undo those, if you push D, it does a fade in. Okay, if you have it selected, that doesn't work, so you click F to do the selected points. And that's really cool to move fast. So if I'm here, I can push D, down, D, and now I just did those fades.
It was the early 2000s.
And the way it determines those is, again, is in setup, preferences, and then here's your fades, and it determines what kind of fade you're doing. So if I go here and I switch the fade to like this S curve like that, click OK. Let me take this off. If you select your fade, and you push delete, your delete key or your backspace key, it just removes it. It doesn't delete your audio file. So now if I go here and I click D, it'll do that S curve. So it determines your fades by whatever you have in your preferences, which is really cool to keep in mind, so you know it's like, okay, so whatever my preferences is, that's what it's doing. So let's say you move something because you want to hear something real quick. Okay, so let's say it's at 54.
Was the early
I go to 100.
was the early
I didn't like that. I don't like it all the way to 100. I want it back to 0 or something where it was at. So to make everything go back to the default setting, which is 0, you push Alt Option, you click, and it always moves everything back to 0. Even if you move like your send faders and stuff, you hold click and it moves everything back to 0. So let's undo all that. And that's what that does. If you ever want to move stuff back to the default to 0, even here, like if I move this here, you hold Alt Option and you click and it moves it back to the default 0 setting. It goes back to 0. And I shouldn't say default because it's going back to the 0 setting because sometimes the default isn't 0. But yeah, it goes back to that 0 setting. And then you just got to experiment what it's doing because like if you click here, the default settings off, so that's what it's going to. If you move here and you click it, the default settings to 50. So that's what that's doing. Here, this default settings off, and that's what it's doing. 100. So yeah, it's just experiment, and that's usually what it's doing. It does all that. Excuse me. So let's see what else I can show you guys today. Let's close these out. Let's go back down here.
was the early 2000s. You know 4XTs, $5.
So as you can tell on these ones have the doubles, and it's these ones have the doubles, and it looks like they're hard right, hard left right now. So they're going to be centered because I'm sure it was recorded in Logic as a mono track, but then when they bounce it out, it bounces it out as a stereo for some reason. You can actually just split them like we did before. So I'm going to highlight both of them, right click, split into mono, and then I'm just going to delete the original, well, hide and make inactive the original and the right side. And then I'm going to move them to, excuse me, 54 and 54.
It was the early 2000s. You know 4XTs, $5 ought to get you. It was the early.
So then it just fixes that. So then you have the more power to manipulate. You can technically manipulate it with it at 100 and 100, but now you're messing with two fader or basically two pan knobs, and it's just kind of a pain to have to do two pan knobs, especially if you get into automation. It's just too much work to do. And lastly, guys, what I want, oh well, that was cool, I'll show you that real quick. So to bring this out, you just double click up here and it brings out the output there, this meter. That's all it
was the early 2000s. You know 4XT.
So yeah, that's just something to show you. And that's what that does. And lastly, what I want to show you guys is to bypass stuff is you hold command and you click and you can bypass whatever you're doing. So basically it won't send it that way. So if you look at this meter, it's going there. Highlight this.
7 be that song.
It was the early 2000s.
Okay, so it's going there.
It was the early.
If I hit bypass,
It was the early 2000s.
it doesn't go to that left side. So let me bypass both of them.
It was the early 2000s.
And it doesn't go there. So if I put both of them back,
It was the early 2000s.
and to bypass both of them at the same time, of course, you just highlight with select. You hold, with shift, excuse me. So they're both highlighted. You hold shift, alt option to do what you're shifted, but you have to hold command as well to click, and they all go off. To turn this into inactive, you hold control command and you click and it will inactivate it. And that's good. So like if you're like, oh, I'm not using this plugin, it's been bypassed, well then just inactivate it so you can save some processing power while you're working. And that helps a lot too.
It was the early 2000s.
So keep that in mind. Okay. And that's some cool stuff there. There was one more thing I want to show you guys. Let me think what it was. Right, nudging. So the last thing to do is nudging. So let's say you don't want to move stuff over with the hand tool and it's like micrometer stuff like this right here. You want to click here, freely click it, click B to cut. You select it, and then you can use the comma and the period keys to nudge stuff over. But it goes off these parameters, which I had showed you guys before in the last lesson. So you might want to switch it to like 10 milliseconds, 20 milliseconds, and then you can click and it nudges it over slightly. And then it makes things move real cleanly too, especially if it's just small increments like that and you don't really want to get too deep and they're moving with the hand tool. Sometimes nudging is just a lot easier, especially if they're like, dude, it's just like slightly a micrometer of a second off. Let's just nudge it over real quick, and then you can just nudge it over like that. And that really, really, really helps. I use it more than I like to admit it. I use nudging just because some stuff's always off. Like, especially I do a lot of pop vocals. I specialize in pop music. So I always got to nudge to make sure everything is completely super duper tight. And that helps to do things like that. And the last thing is if you're going to start EQing and everything, EQing and compression, you can throw that into your inserts here. EQ, and let's bring an EQ out, and let's do this cool telephone effect. So you can actually go in your presets, which I believe it comes stock with that, special effects, and let's go telephone 2. And this one's probably my favorite version of the telephone effect, which when I actually do it myself by hand, I always just remember which this one is, and I get close to that. And let's hear how it sounds. I'm actually going to bring the volume down because I don't want to blow our ears out.
My mama told me not to trust these hoes. My father never told me nothing, cause that nigga was.
Let's add a little distortion there just so it sounds a little cooler, a little more raw. And let's go to the air distortion. And this is my own little preset I have here, which I call it Distort Me Please.
My mama told me not to trust these hoes. My father never told me nothing, cause that nigga was gone. I bought my first nickel bag at 13.
Yep. So that's pretty much it. What I'm going to show you guys today is working with tracks like that. I showed you how to color code, work with tracks, saving your sessions the right way. There's a little bit more I can show you guys, but that's pretty much the basics on this, on how to work with tracks. And it'll get you a long way as long as you guys are doing stuff the right way and keeping those shortcut commands in your workflow. I only showed you guys those shortcut commands because that's pretty much all you really need to know. Those are the ones I use every single day while I'm mixing and working with tracks. I don't use too much of the other stuff, just really that stuff there, and it really, really helps and it gets you moving faster. Alright guys, so next week for the next lesson, it's going to be detailed editing. So I'm going to be importing audio, I'm going to record a little bit of audio, not too much, but just a little bit, and I'm going to get into basic mixing next week. So next week I'm going to tighten vocals, I'm going to start mixing records, I'm going to move drums and stuff around. I'm going to actually bring in a session that has drums and stuff already, like programmed drums and things like that. I'm going to see if I can get something with like a live bass or a live guitar sound so I can show you how to tighten that stuff up. But it's going to be a detailed editing. It's going to show you basic mixing as well, like I said, and that's going to be a really, really cool, fun lesson. And that's probably the lesson where you guys are going to start learning a lot of stuff because I'm barely getting into it here. It was just really more working with tracks, like I said, and moving stuff around using these tools to your benefits, the trim tool, the grabber tool, the selecting tool, how to freely bypass the grid, and really doing fades and a quick shortcut commands, the ones that you are going to use all the time. And then I just want to mention about here doing your inserts, your EQ and compression and stuff like that, because I know a lot of you are trying to start mixing already, so I wanted you guys to at least know where to put those at, and that's here in your insert section. Your sends is to send stuff over here, and that's to do like some other effects like reverbs, delays, and things like that. I would say using sends is more time-based, and as you can tell, there's a delay here, and it's doing a time-based effect to make it more wider. Over here, it's more processing effects, so keep that in mind. Inserts is more for processing, sends is more for time-based effects. And the reason why I put distortion here, because I wanted that effect there processed on the audio file. Let's say you want a reverb effect on your audio file, you technically can throw a reverb here. Don't be scared to do it. So go ahead and throw a reverb here, for example, like the spring verb on this vocal, and play it.
My mama told me not to trust these hoes. My father never told me nothing, cause that nigga was gone.
So let's say you really wanted that like that, go ahead and do that. Remember, use inserts as processing effects. So let's say I want the voice to definitely be that reverb sound. Go ahead and throw it on there. If you don't want it definitely be that sound, you want it more like a time-based effect, so it's more of a, let's say it gives it a sense of space and stuff, then throw it as a send. That's the best practice you guys can do. That's what I learned, and it's the absolute best way to do it. It makes things just sound a lot cleaner, in my opinion, and it makes things move a lot faster, and you're not doing too much processing on everything. Or else, well, I shouldn't say processing, it's not doing too much resources on your computer where you're like, oh, I'm getting buffering errors and stuff like that, because that's a pain when you start getting all that stuff. All right, guys, hope this helped. Go ahead and tune in next week. Subscribe to the page below. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me in the comment box. If you guys need to learn anything else, or you guys want me to do a separate video on something, go ahead and shoot me a comment below as well. I will be doing that video this week actually on creating your own template, so look out for that. I will also be doing a video on how to create your own shortcut commands, so go ahead and look out for that. This week I'll also be putting out a video on the SSL channel and how to use it, and that one's going to be the Waves version because I love the Waves version. It gets the SSL E channel and the G channel, so look out for that as well. And if you guys need me to brush up on anything, I will brush up next week, so go ahead and just shoot me a comment about all that stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope this helped a lot of you guys. All right, take care.